Three, two, one. Show where you can come to get inspired by incredible entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Now, today, we have the honor of speaking with Maria Pesin, a senior apparel industry executive with an outstanding history of achievement and over 25 years of field experience. She has developed brands from the ground up and taken well-known names to new heights of excellence. Her proven leadership ability has led her to spearhead marketing operations and construct and implement business plans for New York apparel giants like Fleet Street and GIII Apparel Group, building multi-million-dollar brands. She's established herself as an expert in everything from merchandising and sales to product development and budgeting. In addition, Maria has done some incredible things that I couldn't possibly capture in this very brief introduction. So I'll stop yammering and we can meet the real expert. Please help me welcome Maria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm excited to be here and be on your show. If you don't mind a tiny little correction, it's actually not GIII Apparel, it's G3 Apparel.
Well, that's totally my fault. And because of live streaming, we cannot edit it. So I'm going to have to own that one. But thank you very much for correcting me. I do appreciate that.
It's $1 billion business in the fashion industry. They have licenses, just to give you an idea, licenses with Kenneth Cole, Cole Haan, Jessica Simpson, more than I can think of, Calvin Klein, a lot of different people. So it's a pretty big business. So I do like to talk about them because I learned a lot being there. I was there for 17 years, so I was there a long time.
That's amazing. So let's jump right in. I want to hear about that. And I want to ask you, what is your story?
Okay. Well, it's an interesting story. At least to me, it's an interesting story. I hope your viewership will enjoy it as much. I started out as a young person in Brooklyn, and I grew up in a blue collar family. They had just enough money. Everyone was fed and had new clothes, but we didn't have a lot of extras. So it was a very kind of basic kind of way of living. But we're part of an Italian family, which is very big and very friendly. So we always felt like we were rich, even though we weren't necessarily rich. And I also grew up in a very kind of chauvinistic home where women got married, had babies, took care of the house, and then that was it. They didn't have careers. And no one in my family, and my father's one of 10 children. My mother's one of 4. I was the first person to go to college, which is pretty amazing considering I was one of the youngest people in the family. So there was plenty of opportunity before that. And no one really had a career in an office. No one ran businesses. It just was not done. So it was kind of a double, triple whammy that I had a lot of challenges that I had to overcome. I didn't learn from anybody how to do business. In fact, I was really into it. I wanted to be in business. And at a very young age, I used to play business, but I didn't know what that meant because nobody had a business that I knew. So I knew that businesses had paper. So I got paper and I got a pen and I figured I'm in business. And this is long before computers or faxes or any of that stuff. So I always knew that I wanted to break the mold. I used to argue my feminist points of view. When I was a kid, the want ads had male and female sections. So it was a very different kind of world. But I knew that I wanted to do something and have a career, and I wanted to make a lot of money and be financially independent. I always knew that that's what I wanted. And I knew to do that, I would have to go into some sort of business. So that was always my goal. And as I said, I didn't know how to do that. I did go to college, but college is limited, let's face it. You don't really learn how to live and how to run a business. You learn aspects of it, but you really learn by doing. So I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any contacts, and girls were just first coming into the marketplace in any percentage, in any kind of significant way. So I pounded the pavements. I got a job as a clerical. I didn't go into a training program. I didn't start in a management, training program. I had to work my way up from less than the bottom. There was mailroom and there was a level below, and that was me. And that's how I started. And I just worked harder than anyone else, gave more than anyone else, always planned my career steps so that within 10 years, I was a sales manager at a company. And then after that, I went to GIII and I launched their Sienna Studio division, which I ran for 17 years. I started it from zero, built it to a multi-million-dollar business, was selling stores like Saks, Neiman's, Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, 800 specialty stores. And I was responsible for everything down to P&L. So I had a full staff of people that reported to me, and I was finally arriving. It was a great company. When I started there, it was small, but it became a very significant company. It went public while I was there, so it really grew. After that, I went to a company called Fleet Street and launched their Jessica Simpson outerwear division. I also signed on Vince Camuto, Mac and Jack and Kenzie, ran that for 7 years, and again, built that to a multi-million-dollar business. And then I decided, don't want to work for anyone else anymore. It's time to work for myself. And that's when I started my consulting business. I wanted to work with people who were still excited about the fashion field. Fashion has changed so much over the years, the industry itself, that it's a much tougher business. It used to be anyone could decide to get into business and they could make a business. Nowadays, you really have to be on your game to be successful. You really have to have all your ducks in a row. So a lot of people who aren't necessarily, what's the words I'm looking for? Not hardworking, not entrepreneurial, not the kind of go-getters that you need to be now. They kind of have been falling by the wayside and leaving the business in droves because they're unhappy with it. So I find that by working with the clientele that I have, which are startups and small businesses, they still have passion for the business. They're still excited about it. And those are the people I enjoy working with. We have frustrations. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy, but it's doable. And if you do it right, you can build a very successful business that makes you rich. I mean, you read about stories all the time of people who started from zero. Look at the one from Spanx. What's her name? Blake, the girl from Spanx.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
I'm a blank right now. My assistant's looking up the name. I'll tell you in a second. But she had this idea. She was going to make shapewear, which is, other than corsets, never existed. She developed it. She banged on doors and built it so that she's a billionaire today. Sarah Blakely. That's why I got confused. I always say Blakely, and then I want to say Blake Lively, and it's not that. So anyway, there's people like that in this industry who built something from zero into something very significant. So I've been doing that for the last 6 years, and I've launched several businesses. We've built several businesses, and it's been exciting, and I like it. So is that too long a story?
No, that's an awesome story.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I really want to know, when you first went into business, mm-hmm. and it felt like there were all of these external pressures or maybe barriers that you had been facing when you first went into business. How did you muster up the courage to still go out there and do it?
Okay. Well, I was frustrated working for other people because I build these businesses and then they would mess them up, making bad production decisions, not allowing me to design it the way it needed to evolve. They had a good thing going and they didn't want to change and evolve. So I was tired of working for someone. So I decided, what business could I go into where I don't have any inventory? Because I didn't want inventory. I wanted to have a service-based business. And I decided to go into consulting. But I'm not a young person. I don't want to say exactly how old I am, but the fact that I remember that there's male and female wanteds shows you I'm not a child. It's not easy for people my age to get a job. unfortunately, ageism does exist. And especially in the fashion industry, people actually make a point of asking for people who are younger than certain ages. And so they are not looking to hire people my age. And I knew if I started something, ultimately, I would be definitely older than anyone would want to hire. But as a consultant, they do want to hire someone with a lot of experience. It's a totally different mindset. But in this case, I figured I had to make this work. So I didn't have a plan B in place. I said, I have plan A, and yes, it'll evolve as I go into business, but that's it. I'm not going to, if this doesn't work out, get another job. I'm not, if this is going to work, doesn't work out, this is going to happen. It was more like, I am just going to make this happen, and that's it. And I'm just going to do whatever it takes. So that was the attitude that I had. If going this way didn't work, I went this way. If going this way didn't work, I went that way. So I tried all different strategies for marketing and for selling my products and my business. But I always stayed true to my mission, and I always said, I'm going to make this successful. So has it gone as fast as I wanted it to? No. I would have liked to see it go a little faster, but it's actually has been moving in the right direction for a long time now. So I'm pretty pleased with the choice. And it's mindset. So I just had to control my mindset. If I get discouraged, and trust me, there isn't a business owner in this world that does not get discouraged in some way. I have a support group of other business owners and friends that I call up and talk to, and have this community, especially as someone who works by themselves. I mean, I do have a small team of people that works with me, but they're part-timers. They're not here all the time. So I'm on my own a lot. And so you have to kind of every day pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get to work and be self-motivated. And I'll tell you, there are many mornings that I want to stay in bed and not get up and not get dressed. And I have to say, nope, that's not going to work. This is my work day, and treat it like a real work day. Like I have to be at my desk by 9. Sometimes I'm at my desk at 8, sometimes I put in extra hours, but I make sure that I put in a full day's work every day.
What have you seen as the biggest challenges or the biggest learning opportunities of going from somebody who was making it rain, working in a company with a company, and then moving out into doing your own thing? Like, what were the biggest learning opportunities or obstacles or shifts that you had to learn from?
The thing that I find that my clients struggle with is getting into something they're not aware of, because no matter what business you work for and what you do, there are strengths that you have and there are weaknesses that you have. So for example, when I started my consulting business, I didn't know what consulting was like. I knew how to run a fashion business. I had done that for a lot of years, but I didn't know how to run a consulting business. So I wanted to learn how to do that, and I wanted to learn how to do that in the fastest way possible. So I hired a consulting consultant, if that makes sense. So I hired somebody whose expertise is the consulting field to help me figure out how to put this together, what proposals should look like, what marketing strategies should look like, all of this, and how to kind of structure the business. And that's true of anyone. I have clients who come into the business and I have one person who sells pharmaceuticals who came into this business, didn't know anything about fashion. I have people who know production really well, but they don't know design and sales. A lot of designers are very creative, but they don't know marketing. So everybody brings their strengths. So it's finding out who they could get to help them with the things that are not their strengths. And everyone always, wants to save money, and I understand that, and they don't want to spend, but sometimes it's more expensive to make the mistakes on your own. I've seen people buy a whole bunch of production long before they needed to. They have all these samples on the shelf and they say, oh my God, I have to sell that. What do I do now? Instead of trying to sell it long before it hits the shelves. So there's a lot of ways that you can shorten your learning curve in order to get to where you want to go in a faster way. And I think that that's probably the biggest challenge that I see. Have you seen that yourself?
Yeah, I definitely think that, well, I actually think the biggest problem that I see is that most people lack the clarity of what exactly they want to do. Like they might say, I want to go into business. Okay, well, what do you want to do? And maybe they say, I want to make $1 million. Okay, well, that's not very clear. Um, how quickly do you want to make that? How do you want to make that? What do you want to sell to make that? Who do you want to serve in order to make that? What's your marketing strategy? Like, are you going to be selling? Are you going to be working with other people? Are they going to be selling and like affiliate market? So I feel like a lack of clarity
That's a really good point.
is a huge obstacle for a lot of people.
You know, it's like when I first work with a client and I ask them who their customer is, and they say everybody. Now, you can't design and you can't sell to everybody because, I mean, let's put it a different way. You can't market and direct your sales efforts towards everyone. You could sell everyone, but if you design and market to everyone, you will get no one because you won't stand for anything. And you'll be in a sea of millions upon millions of people and you won't stand out. So when they come to me and they say, oh, I want to do pants and I want to do handbags and I want to do shoes, and then maybe next year I'll do pillows, I say, pick one category, pick something, get that right, build that business, and then layer it on. So if you want to do sportswear first, who are you going to do it for? Is it going to be the better market? Is it going to be the conservative market? Is it going to be luxury or inexpensive? You have to really focus. So I think what you say about clarity makes total sense. And I think that that is probably why a good business plan will help them get the clarity. I do believe in doing business plans just for that reason. So you ask yourself all the questions that you need answered so that you can be in business. You know, who's your target? What's your vision statement? What's your product about? You know, how are you going to sell it? What are your marketing strategies? What is this going to cost me to go into business? So all of those things go into a business plan. So I think that that's a very good point.
And I actually think it goes even a layer deeper. And what I mean by that is, in order to have clarity on what you want to achieve in your business, you need to have clarity on who you are as a person. Like, what do you care about? What do you want? And that's something that I've been doing a lot of work in lately. And really just getting clear on, like, what's the purpose of my life? What do I actually want to accomplish here? Like, why do I do the things I do? Why am I here?
I like that.
And getting clarity on that, everything else will then fall into line. And for those who are listening or and watching, they're like, "What are you talking about? I know who I am." Okay, you may think you know, you may have an idea, but when was the last time you really asked yourself the hard questions? Like, when was the last time you really sat down and you're like, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I care about? Because what I found is that there are a lot of layers to every person. And so, at least for me, I had like my core of who I was, right? Then I had these external influences that I had internalized and confused with who I was.
Like,
and then,
what do my parents want me to be, kind of thing?
Yeah.
They always wanted me to be a doctor, kind of thing.
Exactly. Like parents, friends, other external influences. And then you're constantly moving forward. So there's always that consumption and input that's getting mixed into that jumble. So there's like a lot of those different layers, and really getting clear on, like, okay, well, what am I actually going to stand for? And it may sound like something that's not really going to be helpful, but once you get clear on that, everything else will become beautifully clear and very, very much like there's my path. It's crazy.
And then when you get distractions and somebody comes to you and says, why don't we do this? And you say, well, that's not what I want to be about. So you quickly can discard opportunities that aren't right for you and concentrate on the ones that are right. So you don't get off on a tangent. I think that's really valuable and really important. You know, another thing that brings up to mind when you were talking is goal setting. people have a lot of trouble setting goals, like saying, this is what I want to accomplish. When I ask people what their goals of their business are, they always give tactics. They always give accomplishments. So for example, I want to have a line ready to show in December. I want to make 3 blouses and 2 pants. I said, no, that's not a goal. That's just a tactic. What is your goal? Well, I want to be successful. Well, what does that look like? I want to be in 500 stores by the end of, 3 years. I want to do $1 million in business. I want a 40% gross margin. They talk about SMART goals till you want to throw up, I'm sure. But the truth is that SMART goals really are meaningful. How does it work again? SMART is specific, measurable. What was the A for? Can't think of what the A is for.
Maybe actionable.
Actionable.
I think realistic.
Realistic and timely. Couldn't think of all the things. Thank you. That was helpful. But you have to have SMART goals. That's part of the vision for your life, is taking what you learn about yourself and putting it out there in a specific goal that you want to achieve, and to have goals every year that you go after. So I think that that's another part of what you're saying that puts it all together.
And what's interesting is how you see entrepreneurs, and I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs every single day, and it seems like the people who really have it figured out, the people who are really successful and they're very much in alignment, they're very happy and fulfilled and doing really, really powerful things, they're all kind of saying very similar things. And it's interesting because when we're speaking about this, I hear what you're saying through the lens of the fashion industry and the fashion business, and very similar concepts, very, very similar concepts through the lens of what you're doing. And to me, that's just another sign of confirmation that these really are the things that it takes to get to where you want to go.
Well, truth is truth, no matter what business you're in. So you're right. This is a thread that goes throughout everything. So there's things that anybody could use to be more successful in their life, and they do transcend all different industries. It could be the health industry. It could be a service business. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product-based business. In my case, I'm a service-based business, but it really matters. These things really matter to what I'm doing. So I sometimes have to turn down a client because they don't meet the things that I can do for them in their business. I can't be successful for them if I take them on because they want from me what I don't do, and what I don't either have the time to do or the desire to do or the expertise to do. So I am very clear. I always tell my people when they show me a contract, do you think this contract makes sense? And I always say, I will look at it for best practices in this industry, but I'm not a lawyer, and you need to take it to a lawyer. So I am really clear on what I can focus on as a business.
Absolutely. So we talked about identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And I'm really interested to learn, how did you identify what your strengths and weaknesses were?
Well, that's an interesting thing just to ask me, because if you asked me that when I was 16, I would have told you I'm incredibly shy, and I could be in a room of a group of people and not say a word the entire time. I was painfully shy. And now my best skill set is talking to people and selling, believe it or not. Sales is one of my strongest skill sets. So that's, I would say, my weaknesses. My strengths, excuse me. My weaknesses, however, are detail work. I hate doing the minutia. I want to do big picture stuff. That's what I enjoy. I like taking charge and running with a project and putting it all together and making it happen. To me, that's what is exciting, and that's what I like to do. So how about you? What's your strengths? I bet you're a great communicator since you're on this site.
Yeah, I feel like communication is definitely a strength of mine. I'm very, very competitive. I'm
In the club.
very competitive.
I'm proud of that part of me. How about you?
Oh yeah, very, very proud. I do have to be careful who like I play sports with, because some friends might not be in it to win it, and I'm always in it to win it. Like if I'm playing, I'm trying to win, and I'm going to do everything in my power to win.
A few choice words might come out of your mouth during the game.
Yes. Especially if they are not taking it seriously. And let's say volleyball, for example. I love sand volleyball. And, I'm like, all right, bump, set, spike. That's how you win it. That's what you have to do. You have to be better than them at bumping it, setting it, spiking it. And then we, as a team, we're like, all right, that's the strategy. And then somebody will do something that's just totally not that. And I'm like, what are you doing? We agreed on the strategy. That's how we do it. Like, let's go. Come on.
And I guess you're not saying it the way you're saying it now. I bet it's coming out a little harsher. What the F?
There may be a few select words there.
Get your head in the game.
Exactly. So communication, competition. I definitely value and focus a lot of time on connections and building relationships with other people, because I feel like in order to get things done, you need to work with other people, and that involves social currency. And so I'm fascinated by the idea of social currency, and with one set of people or a couple people, you may have a certain amount of influence based on the social currency that you've developed and grown, and you can accomplish so much more than a group of people who you have not spent the time to develop that social currency with. So just understanding that and learning about that and being very in tune and very sensitive to that, that's something that I'm fascinated by, and I feel like it's a real strength. My weaknesses are I definitely have shiny object syndrome, and the competitiveness adds to this because I want to win at everything all the time. So it's like I really have to work on not trying to do everything and putting too much on my plate. And then the small details, being consistent with the small details is something that I struggle with. So I've actually,
you and I are alike, aren't we?
We definitely are. So I've actually put a lot of effort into building a very strong team who can help me with that day-to-day consistency with the small details.
That's great. And I think that's made a difference for me. I've always had a team of people to help me. I can't put an interesting PowerPoint presentation together to save my life. All that cutting and pasting, it takes someone 5 minutes, would take me an hour. Not because I'm not computer savvy, but it's all in the details. So I have an assistant who does all my PowerPoints. And actually, she's a remote assistant. She lives in Colorado, so she doesn't even work in my office. She just works for me remotely. So I'm with you. I think having that team to pick up the things that I don't do well at and I don't want to ever do, so I procrastinate on them and just put them out there for somebody else to handle. So the weaknesses are okay as long as you have strategies to overcome them. And then you can concentrate on your strengths. They say that 80% of your results are from 20% of your actions. So you want to make sure that the 20% of your actions are actions that are really worthwhile. Cutting and pasting a PowerPoint is not a great use of my time. And that's another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start out, they want to do everything. Oh, and this is another thing that I could bring up. They not only want to do everything, but they want to do everything perfectly. Perfectly. Like they could do this better, so they want to do it better. They could do this better, so they want to do it better. But they get to a point where they're doing it over and over and so much, they don't get past it to do the next thing and the next thing after that. So there's diminishing returns on their efforts. You know, there comes a point when you have to say, this is good, time to move on to the next step, so that you don't have that paralysis, you know, perfectionist paralysis that people get, and stop them. Do you find that also?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's something that I definitely did when I was first starting out. I have been an entrepreneur for 4.5, almost 5 years now. But what I did in the beginning was I spent time on things that had no relevance to making money or being successful. It was like, they were things that to me seemed like a big deal at the time, like making sure the cover photo on my Facebook page with 0 traffic was perfect. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter.
And I'm a girl and I don't even care.
Yeah, so it's like, that doesn't matter. Like what I feel like I should have focused on, and what I have now learned, is that to really make progress, you need to go find the people, and whether that be potential customers, whether that be potential partners, whether that be potential employees, whatever, find the people who can help you move the business forward and start getting them involved. Mm-hmm. Start getting them involved as early as possible, because things take a long time and everybody's busy. So the sooner you can get on their radar and the sooner you can start engaging them and build real relationships with them, the sooner they can help you, you can help them. Y'all can make magic happen together.
I think really, I mean, think about the difference. Networking with people versus making sure your Facebook page looks nice. There's no contest there. But a lot of entrepreneurs do get bogged down by the busy work. You know, I do consulting, but I also do coaching for people who don't really need me to actually do work for them. I advise them, and we speak weekly. And every week, it's all about moving the needle forward. What can we do to move this process along and get to the next step and get to the next step? It's always about moving the needle. And that's what you have to bring to the table, is what can you do to move the needle along? There was actually a quote I just put on my Instagram site that I really like. I just want to look it up and say it correctly to you. Okay, so there's this woman called Lee Busk, and she's the founder and CEO of TaskRabbit. And she said, I wake up every morning and think to myself, how far can I push the company forward in the next 24 hours? And I thought, it's so obvious and it's so smart. You know, to think, what am I going to do today to move the needle forward? So if it's not moving the needle forward, it's probably not worth doing.
I totally agree.
Great barometer for how you conduct your business, your life. You know, what moves the needle forward?
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially when you're first getting started. Because what a lot of people don't realize, and I'm saying this because I didn't realize this, but one really, really, really good deal can set you up to then skyrocket. Like, instead of going and sending 100 Facebook requests to people, if instead you had one legitimate conversation with the right person, that can be the game changer. Because think about when you're just starting out and you have 0 income. And let's say you want to go get clients. You could message 100 people and say, hey, buy my stuff. Or you could have one relationship with somebody, really learn who they are, really share who you are, understand how you can help them, and then land a contract for like $2,000 a month. That can really move your business forward. And then guess what? You just figured out how to land a $2,000 a month contract. Then you can do that. And so instead of trying to get $20 from 1,000 people, you can get $2,000 from 10 people. And that's way easier. It's like way easier to manage. And I didn't realize that probably the first 8 months of my business. And like, I literally didn't make any money in the first 8 months of my business, like not a penny. And that very first check was like, whoa, that's what really matters.
You know, I have a story to tell you that speaks to what you just said. When I first started out, all I did was network because, first of all, I had a lot of contacts in the industry, so I told everybody what I was doing. But I also started reaching out to people who were in the business that I was in and start connecting with them, people who were doing consulting in the fashion industry. And I have a connection that I made who I never knew before I started this business. And he has referred so many clients to me. Because of him, I've made thousands and thousands of dollars from that one connection. And we're friends now to this day, and we do a lot of collaborative things. So that one, you know, not every connection I reached out to was that profitable and brought that much business, but this person was one of them. And that's because I reached out to him and I was contacting him and we developed a relationship, and he was doing something different than I was doing. So I was able to refer people to him for what he did, and he was able to refer people to what I did.
When you were working in those humongous businesses, like hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars in business, how did you leverage relationships there? I mean, what was it really like being?
Well, there's two kinds of relationships you want to develop with something like that. You want to develop internal relationships with the people that you work with, because if you have good relationships in the company, they'll help you. They'll help you to be successful, and you help them to be successful. The people who are nasty, who are backstabbers, they don't survive. I'll tell you a quick story about that. When I was working at Fleet Street, there was this man who was pretending that he was my friend and wanted to help me. But I didn't know, because I'm not used to this and I just think everybody's a good person. He was actually trying to get me fired so he could take my job. I was president of Jessica Simpson at the time, and he wanted to be president. But he was a cheat and a liar and just not a good person all around. He ended up losing his job. And I stayed, and I was still president, and I was very successful because I just did the work. I didn't get into the nonsense. So the point is, the internal relationships are really important. You have to treat people well. You have to treat them like you want to be treated, and you have to be respectful of them. And if you develop those strong relationships, they'll contribute to your success, because no one does it in a vacuum. Whether it's an employee or a president or anywhere in between, you want to develop those relationships. That was one thing. Second thing is the relationships you make with people outside your business. Who you are as an individual is really important. So I worked with a lot of management, presidents at Dillard's and such, highly placed people at Saks and Nordstrom's and, you know, all different kinds of places. So those relationships were made because people trusted me, and people knew that I was an honorable person and would do what I said I was going to do. So we would go out to lunch, we'd go out to dinner. I'll tell you another funny story. One time there was Neiman Marcus used to bring their whole team of sales department managers in for what they called conclave. So they would come to your showroom and you would show them the line, show what it was about and stuff. And one of the things we did is we took them all out for dinner. So we would rent a room at a restaurant, and everybody would go. And because I worked for a company with deep pockets who couldn't afford it, we took everyone out. I don't know, I must have drank one glass of wine too many because I was smashed. And they just loved that I was smashed because I was just being, you know, like them. In fact, they got me a hotel room in the hotel they were staying in because they thought I'm not letting you go home. You live an hour away from the city. So, developing those relationships on a friend basis as well as a professional basis was really instrumental to success that I had. You can't do anything without relationships. Relationships are the blood of your business, the blood of your life. And you need to have that. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful.
You mentioned how one of your strengths is sales.
Mm-hmm.
How does the relationship building that you were just talking about, how does that relate to your ability to be really great at sales?
Okay. I believe that when somebody hires me, that I'm really excited for them. I really feel like I'm doing something that they're lucky that they found me, because I know so many people who just take their money and not do anything. And I know what I do for people and how much I impact them and how excited they are when they work with me. The same thing when I made product that I sold to stores. I made sure that I made product that was going to sell in the stores I sold to, not just sell the merchandise and hope for the best, but make sure that they're successful with them. So I always looked at their success as being my success. I wanted them to be successful. And I think that when you come from the feeling that you're doing something great for someone, you're selling them product they're going to make money from, you're giving them services that is going to make them more successful. When you come from that point of view, it's not selling. You realize that you're bringing something that they should have, that you're doing them a favor by bringing this to them because it's going to make a difference in their life. So it's a whole different way from selling. It's not just about getting them what you want them to have, but getting them what they need to have. And it's a different approach. So, sales is a dirty word to a lot of people. They think, oh, sales. Salespeople are slimy, right? Salespeople, they all lie. They all don't tell the truth, and you can't trust them. So anybody who sells, especially like car salesmen, oh God, they're the worst, right? So everybody thinks that. But if you look at it from the point of view that I just said, you'll know that that's not really what is happening. Good salespeople take care of their customers so that their customers get what they need and are happy with their services and their product. So I guess that's the difference in my approach. When I have a store come in who wants to do business with me, the very first thing I ask them is, what are the margins that you need to attain in order to be successful? So it's not, what are you going to do for me? It's, what am I going to do for you? And that's a whole different approach.
One of the things that I feel is really a bedrock of humanity, and I know that's a big statement, and I don't say that lightly, is connection. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about relationships and, building relationships and networking and doing things for other people. And what can I do for you? Not what can you do for me? And so I'm interested in learning your philosophy on developing deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another human being.
How do I want to answer that? Because a lot of things come to mind for me. When I meet somebody that I want to have a relationship with, from a business point of view, let's start from a business point of view. I'm always interested in what they are about and listening to them. Everybody likes to talk. Not everybody likes to listen. And listening is something that is a very good skill set for people who want to build relationships. If you're all about talking about yourself and your thing, then you're really not building relationships. So you have to be open to that person, ask them questions, listen, talk to them, and then you learn things that make a difference in their life. I always, I'll give you an example. I have a colleague in the industry who is looking for a job. She's having trouble getting a job because, it's just bad timing, whatever the reason is. So I'm going to a fashion show this week at Fashion Institute of Technology. And I'm inviting her. I thought of her when they invited me. I said, oh, maybe I should invite her. She's looking for a job. Who knows what connections that she could make there. So that's the other part of it, is how can you connect with them on a deeper level? Maybe I might send a book to someone that I read that I thought was something that they would really learn from, or I make a connection for them that they could really use. But not just talking to them, but taking it a step further, listening. And then when you listen and you hear, you can come up with ideas of how to connect with them. Maybe you just send them an article, and then you start to build on that. You talk, on a regular basis. You jot emails off to each other. Maybe you messenger, maybe you meet for coffee, and then the relationship develops after that. And if you could do something for them and do little tiny things, like I said, it could be just sending an article. Those things help forge connections. But listening, that's the first thing.
What's your greatest theory?
Oh, greatest theory. Should have given me that question before so I could think of the answer. I have a lot of theories in life. I guess the one that I've been kind of focused on lately is what you do now matters for the future. So having self-discipline now creates the future that you want. So there was a saying that I have on my phone that says, what will you do today that your future self would thank you for? I love that. And that speaks to my philosophy of self-discipline and doing the right things that you need to do in order to create the future that you have in mind for yourself.
That's a pretty great theory.
You like that one?
I do. I really do. And I like that I was rooted in the self-discipline, because if you're not able to consistently plant those seeds, then you're not going to be able to harvest anything later down the road when it comes time and when you really need it. So I think that was a great theory. You mentioned how your family is very big and very fun. I'm actually Jewish, so I totally get, big.
My ex-husband is Jewish.
Families.
I'm a very Jewish Italian woman.
And so, everything's around food. We don't gather unless there's food. Everybody's.
And if you don't have enough food, people look at you funny.
Yep, that's right. And there's a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and family is very important to me. And I wanted to ask, being so successful and working with these titans of the fashion industry and starting your own business, how has that impacted your ability to spend time with and really be a part of your family?
Well, my family is the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth most important thing in my life. So my children are everything. My brothers, my parents have passed away, unfortunately, but my brothers, my nieces, my nephews, they're really important. So no matter how much I've worked, I also know how to stop working. I also know how to make time for people that I care about, and I do, and I always have. When I was younger, I thought, oh, what if I lived in California instead of New York or Colorado or all these other wonderful places? And I thought, I don't want to be away from my family. So I never moved away. And now I think New York's the center of the world. So, so it was a good move. But I have that New York snobbery that we think, this is the best place you could ever live. But the truth is there are other beautiful places, but I would never leave. And even though I had a full-time big position and I was a single mom for most of my kids' lives, they were always the most important thing to me. Something in my life had to give. I didn't date when my kids were younger because I wanted to be there 100% for them. And I already had to travel for work, so I didn't want to spend any extra time away from them. You can't have relationships with people that you don't give time to. They talk about quality time, and yes, that's important, but quantity is important also. So I think that's the thing that made a difference for me. What makes a difference for you with your family?
Quality time, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, I put in 10 to 15 hours a day on my business and things that I'm trying to accomplish in my life. So whenever I do spend time with them, I try very, very hard, and not always successfully, but I try very, very hard to put my phone down, be present, actually have meaningful conversations with them.
That's great.
I am like I feel like small talk is just awful. I can't stand it. I don't want to talk about the weather. I really don't. I don't care. I can look outside and figure it out for myself. So I want to talk about real things. Like, I want to know, what are you thinking about? What's going on in your life? What's your philosophy on things? Like, what's up with you? What's really up with you?
I bet you don't know that there's a really great side benefit to that. I'm going to tell you a secret from a woman to a man. I dated a guy when I was in my 20s who was so interested in everything I thought and had to say and really paid attention. All the girls loved him. He was he was cute, but he was so engaged when he spoke to you that all the girls loved him. All the girls wanted to go out with him. So see, you have an extra skill set you weren't aware of.
Well, I mean, I really do believe that, though, that we really don't have that much time on this earth, and I want to do real things in it, and meaningful things in that time. And look, that is my intention, and that is what I try to do. But like, I mess up all the time, and sometimes I've even asked about the weather, and I'm like, no, why? Don't ask about that.
It's
Ask about.
actually okay. It's an icebreaker. It's a start to a conversation. Hey, did you notice it's raining? Oh,
No way. I thought the condensation was just very severe. But yeah, so that's how I try to spend really quality time with my family. And look, family's the most important thing to me too. And I'm in New Orleans. Most of my family is in New Orleans, and
Is
that's,
that where you grew up? Because you don't sound like you're from New Orleans.
yeah, born and raised there. And I was actually very, very lucky. I still am incredibly lucky. My grandparents, if you think of like a street as like a U, um, so if it's a U, one set of grandparents was right here on the U, and another set was right here on the U. So you could literally walk. It was like a 5-10 minute walk from grandparent to grandparent, and that was amazing. I was so incredibly lucky to have been able to know my grandparents when they were alive. And my grandpa on my dad's side, he's 88 now. He's the only one I have left. But I was very, very lucky to get to know them, to really spend a lot of quality time with them. And I really do feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world because of my family. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So yeah, that's why that's really why I do what I do, is because of my family, and why I'm able to do everything is because of their support and their love. Really, really does drive me. And again, I feel very lucky. So, but this is your interview. Enough about me.
Well,
So,
I like hearing about you too.
so is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that we did not talk about today? In other words, what did I miss?
I don't really think that we missed too much. I always wanted to be rich when I was a kid. That was my goal. And no matter what it took, I didn't always go in a straight line to the top. I had to do like some side, go to the side. But I always ultimately brought myself back. I have this thing on Instagram again, and it shows success, and it shows an arrow to success, and then it shows an arrow that goes like this to success. And that's been what success has been like for me. I didn't hit the ground running. I didn't start out at the top. I didn't start out at the middle, but I worked my way up, and it wasn't always a smooth run. You know, we had all the problems that you can encounter in business, you know, people who weren't supportive, a boss that used to sexually harass me in a very big way when I was first starting out, and all sorts of problems. You know, went to a company that was supposed to be very successful that they ran into the ground. You know, I've seen a lot of things that make the whole process not very simple and not very direct. And still, I managed to drive through and do better and better and better. And no matter where I was in my career, I always had the next step that I wanted to attain in mind. So when I was a salesperson, I wanted to be a sales manager. When I was sales manager, I wanted to be vice president. Then I wanted to run a company. So I've always had my next steps in mind, and I've always worked to achieve those next steps. And that's what I guess I mean by moving the needle forward. What moves the needle forward? How can I improve as a person? How can I improve my business? How can I improve everything? It's all about improvement, and it's all about being your best self. So I think I'll know that I've achieved my goal when I'm on my deathbed and I say, okay, I'm done growing. I'm finished. But growth to me is probably the most important thing. I'm always looking for ways to improve, always to be my best.
What question should I be asking you, specifically me, asking specifically you? What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Am I the only person who doesn't watch Game of Thrones? I don't know. I don't know. That's a big deal in this house. They've been trying to, I've read all the books, but they've been trying to get me to watch the show. I haven't watched it. I honestly don't know the question to that, because I think I kind of answered it all along the way by bringing things up that I wanted to chat about. But I will tell you that as a business owner, as an individual, as a human being, my life has always been about being a good person, being honorable and ethical. I once worked for a very religious man, and I told him I'm really, you know, not an atheist, but I'm not really sure. So I'm not a religious person. And he said, well, if you're not a religious person, then why would you do good things? Why would you do the right things? I said, because they're the right things to do. And you do things because they're right. Oh, no, he told me. That's not why people do good things. They do good things because if they don't, they're going to get punished and go to hell. So I'm thinking, oh, so this guy who's probably like, you know, stealing all around the place, if he wasn't religious, it wasn't a good comment on him. But the truth is that I believe that you have to do the right thing even when no one else is looking, including God. That it's who you are, whether somebody notices it or not. It's like when somebody drops a $20 bill and they're walking away, don't even know it, and you give them the $20 back. I'll tell you another story. I tried to really enforce this with my children, and my son and I were in Walmart, and we were going to buy a paintball set. He liked to play paintball. He was probably 11, 12, I don't remember, 10 maybe. And we're in the store and he's buying it. And I think it was my money that we were buying it with. And the girl didn't charge us for the paintball set. So I said, oh, you made a mistake. You didn't charge for the paintball set. And she said, yes, I did. I said, no, I really don't think so. She got into an argument with me, insisting she paid, that she charged me. So I said, all right. And I walked out with my son, and I'm looking at the bill in the parking lot. And I said, Ryan, she didn't charge me. Well, I know she didn't. What do you think we should do? And he said, we should go back. Now, we could have walked away with that paintball set and it was like $150. You know, no one would know the difference. You know, Walmart has all this money. They don't need my money. You know, you have all the reasons to say, I could get away with that. But we went back and we showed it to the store manager, the manager at the front, and she said thank you, and she charged us, and we paid for it, and we left. And that's the kind of person that I am, and that's the kind of person I want my children to be, and that's something that I strongly believe in.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, for coming on the show today. I really do appreciate it, and it's been an honor to
having me.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It was a lot of
fun. So thank you very much, and to everybody who's watching, listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. I love you very much. Yes, I do, and I'm so glad that that you stayed with us till the end. That you support the show. Y'all rock. So thank you, and I will see you on the next